Polls are open.
And good evening, everyone. Richard Copperthwaite for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another election night coverage on Town Meeting Day 2025 in the great state of Vermont. Very happy to have alongside, again, Bridget Higdon. Bridget, I think last time around, were you quote just editor of the Messenger? I forget when you became publisher, but again, your meteoric rise continues, but great to have you on board. Anyway,
Great to be here.
some quick thoughts about, I guess my first thought was, boy, a year ago, school budgets just seemed to be the dominant town meeting day with a lot of Vermont taxpayers maybe understandably kind of freaked out about what kind of a generally 14% increase, and that was even down from 19%. They cut it down a bit, but school budgets had a real tough day. This year, just not hearing nearly as much angst about school budgets anyway.
Yeah, I think it's grown maybe beyond school budgets. I think there's still a trickling of concern even about municipal budgets as well.
Yeah, that came up today for sure.
Yeah, for sure, in terms of inflation of so many costs of vehicles or healthcare has been huge for different staffs. So yeah, I do think it's expanded beyond school budgets, and so we'll have to see how that plays out today.
Yeah, Franklin, we'll get into this. I spent about 6.5 hours in Franklin, an hour discussion on a little over $1 million municipal budget. A lot of concern that was up about $200,000. But again, kind of some of the usual issues, select board races around the county, other issues, Swanton Village for the second straight year, a revamp project with their new electric department building, having been shut down big time a year ago on the public safety building. So they kind of came back with a revamped proposal and just kind of dancing around Fairfax issue about town administrator, whether I'm sure the select board, I got to think regular select board members I would think would not be too thrilled to be, if they didn't have a town administrator, but that's been a hot issue that you folks have been dealing with. Montgomery, an LOL issue, a local option tax, and Highgate, and I guess Fletcher too, a ATV issue. So kind of a mix of issues as always.
Yeah, wide range, absolutely, from buildings to positions.
Anything else jumping right out at you for Town Meeting Day 2025? Turnouts are so discouraging.
Really quite low and slow, I think, across many towns today. But then also just sort of quite a few uncontested select board seats, or even no one running at all.
Wasn't Georgia a case for at least one of the two select board slots, no candidate?
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, just trying to find people to step up and take those important roles.
Yeah, no, that seems to be more of a trend too. Boy, that's kind of discouraging when you see that. In my case, I've been attending the Highgate Town meeting for decades. I didn't go today, of course. The vote last year by 10 votes was to go all Australian ballot. Right. So I went down the road a little farther to Franklin. It was a very interesting meeting there. But I noticed on TV News Waterbury, I guess, had a big discussion about whether to stick with the traditional town meeting with action from the floor. Okay. And I was impressed. It was about a 2-to-1 vote to stick with that.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, and you can make the case either way. As reporters, I think we love traditional town meetings, but just Australian ballot does give you more turnout typically.
Absolutely, yep.
Anyway, well, I think we have our first guest who I think we're ready to welcome to the set here, Sean Adkins, the St. Albans Town Manager. Hello. Sean, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So I heard rumblings there was a rather tight race in St. Albans Town for the select board, the contested race between actually a select board member, Amanda Headley, appointed a few months ago, and the longtime former fire chief, Bob Cross. Yeah. Incredibly close vote, right?
Can't get any tighter, really. Outside of a tie, Bob Cross at 447 and Amanda Headley at 448.
Wow. So when will they do like a recount? That obviously will go to a recount. Do they do a recount right away, or what's the story with that?
From what I understand, so don't quote me on this.
Don't quote you.
And Anna's going to double check the state statute because of how rare this is. I believe we've had one tie, at least in the town, the last 15 years.
I remember one with. I remember a select board race. It was incredibly
Sam Smith
close.
And Mr. Schofield. I shouldn't say remember correctly. I wasn't here. If I was told correctly. And so in the event that this does end up in a tie after a recount, then there's a whole new election. Just for this race. Yeah, just for this race.
There'll be a new election.
Yeah. So it was a doozy. And I think statewide, I believe if it's within 5%, that it triggers a potential, not just triggers is the right word, but as a potential for a recount.
Right. Well, it seems inconceivable that the apparent loser, in this case, I guess Bob Cross,
Yeah.
wouldn't ask for a recount seemingly.
I would, that,
But again, they don't do a recount tonight. I mean,
correct. Yeah, we
the
sealed
vote is
it
what it
already.
is.
Yeah, we sealed it. Took a picture of the number on the tab, and I believe the Board of Civil Authority will start to recount that tomorrow.
That's incredible. And again, Amanda
Yeah.
was appointed to the board
Yep.
when Brenda
Early
Deso
December.
had resigned.
Yes.
And it served a
yeah.
couple months, and Bob Cross, of course, tried to get that appointment also.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, as you
Wow.
can say, this race has been going on for a little bit.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it's not over yet. So
Right.
yeah.
How'd the town budget, how'd you fare with the town budget?
Everything else went pretty smoothly. Jeff obviously
Jeff Sanders running
unopposed.
unopposed for a 3-year term.
Yep.
Yeah.
The budget, yes votes 524 and no votes 379.
Uh,
And then the 300,000 of the prior year fund balance, it's usually a yes, 833 to 72.
Great.
So-
Turnout in the town, have you got a turnout number for us?
Just under 1,000, yeah.
And
Yeah, it was in the 900s.
percentage-wise?
Of our overall,
Yeah.
compared to ones since I've been here, it wasn't a huge turnout.
Yeah.
I think that late snowstorm probably didn't help
Yeah.
on that front. But yeah, it wasn't. I think in the election, I think we had, or in November, we had something like 1,600 show up. So
Sure,
a
sure.
little bit of a I mean, there's a lot of elections in the state of Vermont, so
Yes.
it's it's tough to get people to come
Yep.
out every time.
Yeah, especially last year, we had quite a few.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So were you hearing was there much buzz about this town meeting, or not particularly? I guess the contested select board race was kind of the main
Yeah.
action, kind of.
Yeah, you could say that, and you'd ask around and see what people's pulse of it was, and there's enough people that were kind of on the extremes of both sides,
Sure.
and then just most people just say, we don't know. It's gonna be you can't really gauge by how many signs there are, and
Right.
yeah, it was quite it was probably the most intense and shows by the results local board race I've ever been a part of. Yeah, I mean you can't get.
Yeah, it can't get
It's
much
almost
closer
surreal,
than that.
yeah. That was, and our clerk was reading the results off, and it's Bob Cross, 447. I'm like, okay, get the pen ready, and then Amanda Headley, 4. And I'm like, whoa, we're all kind of hanging on, and of course Bob and Amanda were there, and it says 8, and the whole room kind of did
Wow.
a gasp.
With the reaction from the candidates, well, Amanda, the apparent one vote winner, was a little happier than Bob, or much reaction from Bob to that?
I would say they both had the same reaction because it was so instantly close. There was no math you had to
Right.
do. There's no, are we within 5%? Or anything like that. It was okay. This is going to be recounted. And,
Wow.
yeah. So it was almost like anticlimactic at the
Yeah,
end
sure.
because we went through all this, and hold up, and then it's like, and it's not over.
Right,
Okay,
right, right.
now
Gotta
it's
wait another day.
yeah. So again, Anna briefly outlined a few of the steps, and I think I'm gonna have to clear my calendar tomorrow
Right.
for this stuff.
Yep.
So I guess the biggest increase in the town budget, which was easily approved, was police department with
Yep.
CDPD officers getting a decent raise and stuff, so that kicked up your budget?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
It was, I believe, as I said on your show, if you take away inflation and insurance and police, we actually probably went down.
Really?
Not probably, or we would have had
Yeah.
a decrease in the budget.
Sure.
So
Wow.
Can you talk a little bit about how it's gone with the St. Albans Police Department over the last, what's been 8 months now or so?
man, yeah, it has been 8 months, isn't it? Yeah. This is my first year here. It was just kind of waiting for that to go.
Sure.
I think it's gone great personally. It's I mean the two big busts that happened are a direct result of the street crimes
The
unit.
street crimes unit back
Yeah.
up and
Yeah,
running
sure.
again?
Yep. So I mean that didn't get up and running until after the new year. So for that to produce such quick results, that's
Right.
within 8 weeks. By the time they did the bust, I don't think you can ask for anything better.
Sure.
And as somebody who's not from here, a lot of the community knew the addresses already. So I think they finally saw it and they were like, okay, yeah, this is working. Yeah. So
Was
yeah.
this a tougher budget to deal with, Sean? This was your, it's kind of second
Second full
budget?
cycle. Yeah.
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 How was this compared to the first one? And of course, you know the town better, I guess, obviously.
Yeah. I would say it was less dramatic because my first year all of a sudden, oh, by the way, it's going to be one
Right.
of the largest single-year increases the town's ever seen.
Right.
So that was a fun trial by fire. And that was also my first one ever being in a place where the public voted on the budget.
Sure.
So there's a lot of new moving parts that I wasn't quite used to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this year I felt pretty confident in it,
good.
as much as you can,
Sure.
having a lot of people vote on
Right.
it, so.
And of course, there's people concerned about, not just in St. Albans Town, but all over about property taxes increasing. And a way to solve that is through, business development and growth in town.
Yes, indeed.
And I know that that's something that you're particularly interested in and have background in.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of efforts are happening in St. Albans Town around economic development and trying
Yeah,
to draw in business?
yeah, I guess as much as I can.
Sure.
Any breaking news on the former town hall perchance
Oh,
while we have you?
You know that there's nothing more that I'd like to do and break news on that one. It was shown last week, but
Really?
yeah, I'll still taper my details and enthusiasm on it until
And you
at this
brought in
point.
a
Right.
new real estate firm a
We
while
did.
back.
Yep. A bigger firm, and they've done great. We're actually doing an inspection tomorrow on it, just for kind of preemptively on that front. But no, we are working on that front. I've actually put my kind of economic development cap back on recently for a couple things behind the scenes that hopefully come to fruition
Okay, great.
in the near future.
Yeah, I know that was, you put some Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds
Yep.
into that, and so it's something that's going to be in the works, I'd imagine, in the next
Yep, and
year
also
or so.
in a kind of way that's palatable, to the community.
Sure.
I think when I first got here, people saw, my skill set and stuff, and they're like, oh, no, what could this be? And it's like, no, it's what fits the
Right.
community.
Absolutely.
I will say, if you want to hear breaking news, the new state law triggered our reappraisal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so.
Boy, join the crowd.
Yeah.
Good luck
Yeah.
finding a reappraisal
Yeah.
firm.
Yep, and the state even knows it, it was in the letter.
Okay,
So
okay.
St.
Yeah.
Albans City's started theirs and
Yeah,
a bunch
but-
of other towns.
Well, it'll be a lot more than you think. Any town that hasn't had one within 6 years,
Right.
on January 1st got called for that,
Okay,
so.
okay.
But they know we're not gonna be able to get it done based on the pool of available
Right.
assessors, and they can do that, until like 2029. That's the, yeah.
Hey, well,
Okay.
thanks for
Yeah.
that breaking news. Sean,
Yeah,
thanks for,
breaking news,
thanks
yeah.
for joining us.
Yeah,
Select
thanks for
Board will
having us.
reorganize next Monday, March 10. Would that be a reorganizational meeting for the Select Board?
I'm sorry, say that again?
A reorganizational meeting to elect maybe a new chair? Does that happen always right after town meeting?
It'll be, we just had our meeting, Monday.
So
Anyway, I'm
two-
sure.
so
you know,
it's-
Yesterday.
we'll
Gosh,
see
that was
if you
yesterday.
have-
It's been
we'll
a
see
long
if you know all of your select
Sure.
board members
Yeah,
by then.
so 17th, yeah.
Anyway, the 17th,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway,
Okay.
thanks
Thanks
a
very
lot,
much.
good to see you.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing what happens with the select board.
Take the
contested
under on
race.
anybody being closer race.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, no, St. Albans Town, it's happened before, but.
Not in a long time, yep.
That's amazing. I should note, our big boss, Mr. Paul Snyder, our executive director, going to be our new results guy. Paul, anything to throw at us right now?
Yeah, we did have some unofficial results from Swanton Village
Yeah.
regarding the electric facility. Hold on. Probably help if I put my microphone on, right, Richard? I've been doing this how long? So we have some results from Swanton Village regarding the electric facility.
The $8.3 million bond issue, yeah?
Yep, that was voted down 172 to 166.
Wow,
These are the
another
unofficial
close
results
vote.
from Diane Day over there at Swanton Village.
Oh, is that right? So that
That's
went
probably
down.
the largest result we have to know right now.
Thank you. That's one of the results I was most looking forward to getting, but, boy, that's a tough one for they've done a lot of work on that. They
Yeah,
got a
really.
lot closer, but it's got to be pretty discouraging for the proponents of that. Interesting. And of course, a year ago in Swanton Village was a contest for village president with David Winchester, edging out Neil Spear, but Neil's back on the board, now succeeding trustee Eugene LeBombard.
Right, for that
So
uncontested seat.
that'll
Yep.
be an interesting board to be watching, but
Yep.
boy, so a very close vote on that. Jeez. And any other results, Paul, for us? I guess I'll be interested in Swanton Town. Actually, we've got let's do our first Zoom, and I can't wait to talk to Bryce Batchelder, who I saw today at the Franklin meeting, and we've got Bryce zooming in now from Franklin. Bryce, are you out there?
I'm here, zooming right in.
Actually, Actually, we've got Is the meeting finally ended? I finally left at about 4:30. Bryce Batchelder, who I saw today at the
Yeah,
Franklin meeting,
we
we've got, Bryce
we ended
zooming in
maybe
now from
quarter of
Franklin.
5.
Bryce, are you
I
out
would
there?
say around there. One of the longer ones, one I'll tell my grandkids about
Finally
someday.
ended. I finally left at about 4:30. A big discussion on the municipal budget. Again, it went on literally for hours, but I think I lost count, but it seemed like about a half dozen votes on the municipal budget, which finally ended up getting approved as proposed.
Richard, you need me to talk about the budget saga again and relive it. 2025.
A half dozen votes on the
Oh, man.
municipal
So, all
budget,
right.
which finally ended up getting approved as proposed.
Yeah, so the whole kind of what happened is essentially a 21% increase for the town budget. So residents, rightfully so, had questions, concerns about the increase, and so a number of amendments. The initial amendment was to reduce the amount by $50,000, which failed. And also one tidbit, an interesting bit of Vermont election law that we learned today is that if your town has a town meeting instead of Australian ballot, you cannot leave the meeting without a budget, right? So it's not like we could vote the budget down, the select board goes back, makes adjustments, and then we vote again on a later date. We cannot leave without a budget. So the First Amendment was voted down. There was another amendment to reduce the amount by 100,000. That was voted down. Then another amendment to reduce the amount by 60,000. That passed by 4 votes. Remember, that's not passing the budget, just passing an amendment, right? And so now we vote on the new budget amount, which was a $60,000 decrease from the original amount, but that was voted down. So we still don't have a budget. Then there was another amendment to essentially increase the amount by 60,000 again, moving us just back to the original amount. That amendment passed. And before we could vote on essentially the original amount again, there was another amendment to reduce it by 40,000. That failed. Then another amendment to reduce the original amount by 25,000. That ended in a tie. So we had to re-vote on the $25,000, reduced by $25,000 amendment. That eventually failed by 8 votes. And so then we just went all the way back to voting on the original budget that the select board presented with us. And that eventually passed about 2 hours after we started the initial budget conversation. So I would say we eventually got there. Our town has a budget. We understand everything is more expensive, so things are going to go up. But I think the residents also kind of giving the select board some message that we would also still like them to do as much as they can to try to reduce costs, especially for future years, which, our select board, they work hard. They're not just adding money for the sake of adding money, but still kind of a budget adventure today here in Franklin.
It's a good rep. And before the budget came up, there was the item about the $60,000 sidewalk snowplow equipment. And there were questions about that, and that went down.
Yeah, that was the only other article that we had to vote on today. $60,000 for a new
$60,000
compact tractor, essentially to clear the snow from sidewalks, because we have some new stretch of sidewalks in town. That was voted down. I think folks recognize that actually we need a new machine for sure. I think it was just the price tag that folks didn't love. And then, so those were the only 2 things that we had to vote on for articles today. The other kind of important conversation that happened, and I'll also note that there weren't any contested elections, so that went all smoothly. The only other kind of major note of conversation was the select board used some ARPA funds to purchase a historic town or a historic house in town with the eventual plans to make that our new town clerk's office because our current office is small, running out of room in the vault. They used ARPA funds to do that. I think some folks in town voiced concern that even though it's ARPA funds, it doesn't require a town vote. They still would have appreciated that still went to the vote, still went to the town for a vote because it's a major expense. But also conversations about the town invested the ARPA funds through Edward Jones to get a return. They used some of that return to help close the gap on the purchase of the house. And so there are some questions about, are those funds, the interest return, are they still considered ARPA funds, which don't require a town vote, or are they then considered town funds, which should have required a town vote? But that's not something that we could really get an answer on because that gets into like finance law and election law and things like that. And none of us have expertise on that. So that question was sort of left unanswered for the day.
Dave Benyon, the Franklin Select Board Chair, also was asked about plans for the building, and he made it clear that that's a ways down the road. I guess they're still trying to get information on what they can do with the building, but I think he said at one point, maybe 3 to 5 years before they really have a handle on what they can do with the building.
Yeah, 3 to 5 year plan. They have, I think, an architect putting together a report. We're still kind of waiting on the report to see what type of work there can be. Their plan is to try to get as many grants as possible to reduce the cost to the taxpayers as much as they possibly can. I'll say this would also, if they move into this new house, once they convert it into a town clerk office, it also benefits the library because the Haston Library are the top 2 floors of the building that the town clerk's office is in, and so that would open up a 3rd floor for the library to use and expand their services. But quite a ways off. And then Richard, also just note that kind of the other big piece of conversation in Franklin every year is just the health of the lake. We're moving away from an aerator system that didn't work, and they're going to take that out of the lake, and we're going to try alum treatments with the state. And kind of what was presented to us is that alum treatments have historically worked, and that it could help the lake for as many as 15 to 20 years, reduce those blue-green algae blooms, help the lake be healthier. But again, we don't know until it actually starts, and we can see what happens. But obviously the health of Lake Carmi is always a top piece of conversation in the town.
The alum treatment will start this fall, and there was a reference that it might go into next spring, but it sounds like it's not too far away. Bridge, I think we're running very quickly. We're kind of running out of time here, but quick question for Bryce. Are we good?
I think I'm all set.
Okay,
Thanks
sorry.
very much for joining us.
Bryce, that's a great report. Fun meeting to be. Thank you very much. Hope you get some sleep tonight.
Looking forward to being at town meeting with you again next year.
Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Lake Carmi. Boy, Lake Carmi. I've gone kind of from St. Albans Bay to Missisquoi Bay to Lake Carmi being kind of the official poster child of Vermont's kind of lake water quality problems. Wow. So that issue got quite a bit of attention. So where'd you? Were you wandering around today, or did you catch any discussion anywhere? Or
Yes, I spent a little bit of time at Fairfield
in
Center School.
Fairfield?
So after they had already done their floor vote, but was there to just listen to some folks talk about the school budget, because they were weighing in on Maple Run Unified School District, of course. And that was about 50-50. I talked to probably about 6 voters, and 3 said they were both for the budget, and 3 were hoping it failed.
Interesting. And boy, last year was the only close vote I can recall for Maple Run. Pretty close vote.
Right, the closest
Last year.
in year since it had unified, for
We'll
sure.
see what happens this year.
Yep.
Hey, I think we have the newest member of the St. Albans City Council with us right now, who I think neither one of us has met. Lindsay Hunn.
Hi.
Great, and congratulations, Bridget
Thank
Higdon, Richard Copperthwaite.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nice
So
to
how does it
meet you.
feel? I wouldn't have any idea. How does it feel to be a newly elected official?
Well, it was a tough race, I'll tell you that much.
And you jumped in pretty much right at the end, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Was it clear that Newell Decker's an old friend of mine? I told Newell when he got elected 3 years ago, and feel free to give this some attention, to try to get the Amtrak from Monter to Montreal.
Yeah.
Newell, as you may know, is a huge railroad buff.
Yes.
And I'm a little disappointed that Newell didn't pull that off. Anyway, I'm kind of kidding.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
So, yeah, I have been attending the city council meetings for some time,
Really?
just because I'm a resident and care about my community, and work in the city. So
what's your job?
I work at Northwestern Counseling and Support Services.
Wow.
And so I had been attending for some time, and then went on the website to double check when the next meeting was, and saw that Newell was up for reelection, and heard rumors that he wasn't running, and that no one had stepped forward to do so. So that would have left my ward unrepresented. And I said, okay, I guess I'll do this. So I kind of just
Sure.
took a couple days and got the signatures, knocked on doors. It was, of course, during that incredibly cold time, right
Of
toward the
course.
end of January. People were very kind and took pity on me and signed it without making me stand too long in the cold. But it was fun to walk around and meet my neighbors that I hadn't met before. Some I knew, some I hadn't. So
Right.
yeah.
How long have you been living in the city?
So officially, I bought a house a year and a half ago,
Wow.
but I grew up in the area. I've lived in St. Albans off and on for pretty much most of my adult life,
Really?
and have always worked in St. Albans. So I've been really, growing up in Bakersfield, St. Albans was the big city that we'd come shopping at. So it's always kind of been part of my life.
So what do you think? Is the city in pretty good shape, you think, these days? What are your thoughts on the city and biggest challenges you think you guys are dealing with?
So from memories in my past as, a Vermonter growing up here, I think the city has drastically improved. Downtown is beautiful. Taylor Park is amazing. And, seeing people walk down the street in the summer is just wonderful, and in the winter when they're crazy. I think the biggest issue is what a lot of people are seeing, and it's a lot of the crime, a lot of people experiencing poverty, struggles, and those are issues that are near and dear to my heart, and things that I would like to collaborate with other folks on, and work on making the community stronger in that way.
Yeah. What role do you think city council can play in folks who are in need of housing?
Yeah, that's kind of tough. I'm sort of still learning what
Sure.
the, powers are that city council holds. But I'm really interested, I was interested in this position because it is the most kind of local form of government where you can be the most connected to your community. And there are some things that city council has passed to help with kind of the hardships that we're seeing happen downtown. And I think a lot of it is culture and messaging. I think that being that such a small government as the city council, you're able to sometimes make bigger changes because you're affecting people on a personal level.
Right.
So I'm interested to see, I'm not going to say I know exactly where those responsibilities lie, but I'm really interested to see the kind of impact that we can have. And even just chatting with my neighbors when I was going door to door, they had some thoughts and suggestions that I'm excited to take back to the council and see if those could be things that are within our jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I know you've worked on some campaigns in the past for other people. So
Yes.
could you share maybe something that those taught you about public service and that you'll take with you now?
Yeah, I worked on quite a few campaigns at the local and national level, and went to a lot of different places that were experiencing a lot of different hardships. And I think just really listening to people and cutting through some of the emotional rhetoric that goes back and forth, and making sure to listen to people's emotions and where they're coming from, but also looking at the facts of the situation is really important. Getting a well-rounded approach to something so that you're not basing
Absolutely.
things on just facts or just emotion, because there's,
Right.
they both matter, but
course.
it's important to take those in context.
Lindsay,
Yeah, that
before
sounds
we
great.
let you go, do you know,
Yeah.
did the city budget pass and the underground storage tank under Houghton Park, do you know?
I don't know. I
no.
got a text that Hopefully I was elected, but I was uncontested, so
I think we can,
That's all I
can
know,
count on
sure.
that. And we know you're not in this for the money, seeing as you'll be paid exactly nothing
this
for your.
this isn't a paid position?
No, it's not. I suspect you might. Yeah, I feel bad. And I'm a longtime city resident. Maybe I'm one of the few people who think it's insane you folks get nothing. Hey, you used to get $10 a month, and they even took that away.
Oh, man, I could have got a coffee.
Anyway, hey, well, thanks for
That's
joining
right.
us.
Thank
Good
you.
good
Yeah,
luck in
thanks
your
for
new
coming in.
position.
Thank you.
I should also note that Tim Hawkins ran for re-election unopposed in Ward 1.
Right.
Happens to be my ward, and Chad Boudreau in Ward 6. I guess he had been elected to a year. Anyway, he was elected to the final 2 years on kind of a 3-year term. Anyway, and I think, Paul, we got some news for us here, my man?
Yeah, Richard, so you were asking about the combined sewer overflow.
Yeah.
And I do have those results. So that passed 498 to 178.
Wow, 498 to
178.
178?
Yep, and then for the budget, that passed as well, 410 to 266.
410 to 266?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Anything else for us right now?
I mean, honestly, we've been getting a steady flow of data coming in.
Yeah.
We've gotten results from Alberg. The only thing that didn't pass there was the school budget failed in Alberg.
Boy, Alberg's had a tough time with the school budget for
Yeah,
a lot of years.
and not by much, 175 to 156.
Really?
All's well in Berkshire, Fairfield, same thing as well. Those are the ones we've been getting in just the last few minutes. And of course, they're also scrolling at the bottom of the screen for everyone that wants to check in too. So
Very good, thank you. Yeah, it didn't seem like there was much doubt about the city budget. The underground storage tank, not the most exciting issue, but sounds like a
Nope, another one
a
that
good
that
issue
go-
for the
that
city to
goes
move on.
with water quality for
Yeah.
sure, and the health of the lake, which people care quite a bit
Yeah,
about.
and it sounds like there's a lot of that. Burlington, unreal. Burlington had almost, what, $200 million in bonds? I think 172 mil for wastewater, 20 for water. I mean, just some huge numbers. And I believe we have, well, the apparent winner, at least at this moment, Amanda Headley. Come and join us, Amanda. Incredible. St. Albans Town, this is not the first incredibly close vote in a contested select board race. I remember one back not that many years ago, which was about the same thing. But again, you're at least the apparent one vote winner, 478 to 477 over Bob Cross.
Yes.
Boy, congratulations, but geez, I mean, obviously there's going to be a recount seemingly. You'd expect that, I assume.
You know, there was people that in the parking lot that were saying like, hey, I came out just to vote for you. And I'm like, you were the one. So
Yeah, right.
thank you so much for coming out. Because
Wow.
this is one of
That's
those races
incredible.
where every vote mattered.
Boy, I guess you're right
Absolutely,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Sounds like I know you worked hard. I assume Bob Cross did also, but I know, I heard a lot of reports you worked hard at this.
Yeah, 20 hours of door knocking.
Really?
Yeah, since January 17th, I think, is when I started door knocking.
Very nice.
So yeah, meeting the people face to face, and they, you know, resonated with the message, and that I had the energy to really follow through.
Great. What was something that you learned about St. Albans that you hadn't known before that came across during this?
There's a lot of voter oppression, actually. Like some people were like, I can't put your sign in my yard, but I'm going to vote for you. And I thought
Interesting.
that was very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, that they couldn't publicly say anything.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Did some people, anybody shut doors in your face? Was everybody pretty civil? Did you run into anybody who was just very unfriendly, or no, not really?
No, everybody was really friendly. I mean, that's part of the thing I love about St. Albans is everybody's really friendly. Some people were like, I'm on a conference call, and I'm like, okay, you know, like, thanks
Sure.
for answering the door.
Right.
You know, but no, everyone was very friendly.
Biggest issue, I mean, obviously, taxes seem to be a dominant issue, but what were most people, you know, wanting to talk to you about or asking you to help them with or whatever?
When I said that I want to increase the tax base, they were like, how are you going to do that? You know, they wanted like concrete steps. And I'm like, well, I'm talking to developers. I want to get, you know, businesses in the industrial park. And, you know, just, I have ideas. I just need to get them through. So it's just talking to more people. And then the whole cleaning up the bay thing, there was also, how are you going to do that? You know, and I'm like, well, we're working on it, you know. So I hope everybody comes out to the March 17th Select Board meeting, as we will have Bridget from the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. And I just want as many folks there that care about the bay to be there.
Awesome.
Interesting. So again, I just can't imagine an apparent one vote victory. If this happens to go the other way, which obviously you hope it doesn't do it, I mean, would you consider, even if you ended up losing this race, would you have considered this a positive experience? Would you be glad in retrospect if you, for chance, ended up losing the race that you ran? Has it been a pretty positive experience?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
have no regrets about,
Yeah.
the way, how much time it took, how many people that I met. It was a great experience, and, one that, I could tell my kids about, they were like excited to see their mom like running for office and taking a stand for her town that she cares about, so.
Yeah, awesome. That's wonderful.
I think St. Albans Town, you think's in pretty good shape, Amanda? Obviously, you like the place, but pretty good shape?
Yeah, pretty good shape,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a few improvements here or there and we'll be great.
There's always things to improve and make better in any community, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wonderful.
well, again,
Yeah, thanks for spending
congratulations
time
on,
with
I
us.
guess we can
Thank
call it
you.
your, again, apparent one vote victory, but in any case, congratulations and thanks for coming and joining us for a
Yeah,
bit.
thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Paul, anything you want to throw at us right here?
I don't have any other new results right now. We're just kind of waiting on basically Enosburg and Richford, and then of course all the school districts. We probably won't know anything until either later in the night or even tomorrow morning. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Maple Run, again, a close vote a year ago, Bridget, and you'd kind of expect a fairly close vote this time around too?
I do think so. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that they kept that increase within 2%, which I know the school board was proud to have done, because that was even below the threshold that Governor Phil Scott had sort of requested throughout the state. Yeah, but we'll just have to wait for later.
Yeah, and I guess interesting about Maple Run, and you probably got into this, but I guess the percentage increase in the Maple Run, $77 million budget or so, was just about 2 or 3%. It was a pretty low increase in the budget.
Right, it was just
believe.
2%, yep.
2%, but they did that. But I think I read probably in the messenger that they just eliminated about 20 positions.
Yes,
Albeit most of them have been vacant.
correct,
But
that is true.
Boy, that's incredible. Sounds like wrestling with the school budget to come in with a low increase like that and having to eliminate 20 positions seems incredible. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back in 5 minutes. Thanks for joining us here on Northwest Access TV. We'll be back.
Polls are open at 10 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. And against, nay? Polls are open at 10 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. And now we'll begin the regular town meeting day. We have a motion made and seconded for the election of So we have a nomination for Kathy Westcomb to be collector of delinquent taxes. Any discussion? Seeing as none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Appears the ayes have it. Congratulations, Kathy, for another year. For Jess Villeneuve in the role of grand juror. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Against, nay? The ayes appear to have it. Congratulations, Jess, once again. We have none. We'll move forward with Ron Marcox for the Cemetery Commission 5-year term. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. And against, nay. Congratulations, Ron. Vote is for Jan Macy for Cemetery Commission, 4-year of a 5-year term. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. And against, nay. The ayes appear to have it, and they do. Congratulations, Jan. Kerry Figure, I apologize, Kerry. I'm having a day. For the 3 polls are open at 10 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. And now we'll begin the regular. Shall the town authorize the select board to set a tax rate to cover expenses as voted? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And against, nay. The ayes appear to have it, and it does. Shall the town authorize the select board to borrow money in anticipation of taxes? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor, state aye. Aye. And against, nay. The ayes appear to have it, and they do. Shall the town appropriate $50,757.28 for the H.F. Brigham Library for the fiscal year 2026? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those against, nay. The ayes appear and do have it. Exuberantly, correct.
Mr. Moderator, if there are no other announcements, I would move to suspend the rules and recognize Representative Penny DeMar for some remarks.
It just amazes me every year to come to Montgomery. It's my own hometown, but to see the numbers here. This doesn't happen in other communities, so.
We'll move along to item 2, Article 2, elect the remaining town officers as required by law. A, select person, 2-year term to expire in 2027 by ballot. Emily Kimball's term expires. Do we have any nominations?
I would prefer to decline your nomination, but I appreciate it.
Okay. There were 104 votes cast for Daniel Kahn, 53 votes cast for Charlie Snedecor. We have elected Daniel Kahn for a position of select board person, a 2-year term to expire in 2027. Article 2B, to elect a select person for a term of 3 years, term to expire in 2028 by ballot. Charlie Hancock's term expires. Charlie Hancock has received 115 votes. Cliff Luce has received 17 votes. Charlie Snedecor has received 31 votes. We have elected Charlie Hancock for...
We have 125,000 outstanding for the public works building. And it appears to pay an $8,400 a year in extra. So I'll make a motion to transfer $40,000 from the fire department library budget, $45,000 from the recreation department budget to the general fund to pay the $125,000 owed on the public works building bond.
The amendment is to transfer $40,000 from the fire department and library budgets and $45,000 from the rec department budget to the general fund to pay $125,000 owed to the Public Works building bond if consistent with terms of the existing bond.
Christine Suarez, library board member, just please visit the library. These are all services that young children, the fire department, your home depend upon.
Barry made a friendly amendment.
And the vote was found only the amendment to the amendment.
No, you accepted the friendly amendment from Barry. We can agree to disagree. If you would like to call for an appeal, you can call for an appeal. Otherwise, I'm going to proceed with the vote. Would you like to call for an appeal? Would you like to call for an appeal? Then you are not recognized. Sheldon, voters.
Excuse me,
What was your point of order?
yes, I'd like to excuse this article, number 7.
We need to pass that by 2/3 majority to kill Article 7. And we're going to vote on that right now.
I want to recount.
Let's be super clear about how this works. If we have a voice vote, and there's a legitimate concern that the voice vote is not clear, we can call first for a division by hands. Anyone can call for that at any point, and then we will do a hand count. If people want to call for a division by ballot, 7 people can request a ballot vote. There's only 40% approval to pass over, so the motion to pass over fails. We are now back into consideration of Article 7, which reads, shall the voters of Montgomery authorize...
This was a petition that people in this town, I went door to door, and 5, 6 other people did also. We brought that in front of the select board, so he put this little thing in here, just put a... put a rock in our way, the petition way. That's what they did. I'm not pointing fingers.
It's gonna work out. It's just that there's gonna be an influx of people into here. The median income over here is going to be $33,000.
He has the floor.
$33,000.
He has the point of inquiry.
Who called the question?
It doesn't matter.
I did.
Oh, there you go.
I called the question.
The question has been called, and the question has been seconded.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
It sounds like the 2/3 of the aye have it. We have called the question, unless there's a call for division. I need to see 7 people.
But I derive the fact that the median income of this town is $34,000. $34,000. Okay? So as we're getting a maybe it's not exactly, but it's pretty close.
47.
47 where?
47,465.
Okay, so my Google search said completely opposite. It said $34,536. So, and that was derived from multiple sources and also has some other things. But anyway, my point is that.
And good day, everyone. Richard Calverthway. We're talking Town Meeting 2025. Happy to be sharing some results with you. Happy to have Bridget Higdon, the publisher of the St. Albans Messenger, and guesting with us right now, the Swanton Village president, just re-elected, David Winchester. David, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
So it sounds like not the best news on your big project.
No, not the best news. It was definitely quite a surprise.
So again, we're getting a 172 to 166 defeat of the $8.3 million bond on the new building for the electric department.
Like
Those are the numbers we got.
Yes, yep.
172 to 166.
Yep, 6 votes.
What did you think? Did you think that was going to be a close vote? Did you think you were going to pull that? I remember talking with you a week or two ago about that.
Well, it's interesting. We just really started to realize, I think, towards the end, just how confused people were with last year's versus this year's, especially the way it was being funded. No property tax increase this time, but people were
Talk a little bit
confused.
about that. How would it have been funded?
It would have been funded by the electric company. So the electric company, as you know, covers many towns, has far more customers than the village residents. There's
Right.
only about 500 or 600 homes, 4,000 customers versus 500 or 600 homes.
Right, so that cost would have been spread out across
Spread
it.
out.
Correct.
more.
Yeah. So as you know, it's not a government expense. It's a utility. So anything that's funded by the government would have to be funded by levying and putting property tax or raising property taxes to pay for it.
Right.
And because it's not one of those things, and it's a legitimate cost for the electric company, they could have more than afforded their new building, right? And then that would have freed up a lot of space in the existing building, which would have saved the taxpayers $5 or $6 million, which would have been over $20 million compared to last year.
Sure.
And the big confusion was, or the big scuttle last year was, this is a village project. Only the village taxpayers can vote on something like that. But because of how the police budget and the fire department are paid for, is through the grand list. And the grand list for the whole town is about 7 million. 1.6 of that is the village, the rest of it's the town roughly. So that meant 80% of that, something that the town couldn't vote on, what they would have had to have paid for.
Sure.
And if the village had passed that project, and the town later on decided not to support the fire department budget or the police department budget, then all that 80% that was spread over a larger amount of people would have all come back down to the 500 or 600 households in the village, which would have meant, you know, what, $4,000 or $5,000 more on their village property tax. So with the electric company, they have about $7 million worth of revenue. 1.6 versus 7. They have an easier ability to be able to fund something like that and still be the lowest electric rate in the entire state.
Sure.
So no property tax increase for anybody, no disgruntlement between the town and the village with this solution. Electric company can afford their own space, and the taxpayers save a lot of money. With the gained extra space, the PD would have had extra space without having to build them a new building. All the other departments in the complex would have had more space without, once again, funding them more space that would have all been paid for through property tax. So the fact that this solution didn't pass yet, or the next one, we don't really know what to do. We'll have to convene and have another discussion about it,
Sure,
or
sure.
see how well this sits with the village taxpayers and voters.
Could
Whether they,
you, I forget with the bond, could you bring this back? I mean, a very close vote.
Yep.
You're obviously thinking
Yep.
disinformation, maybe if people
6 votes,
exactly
oh
knew
yeah,
what was
that's,
going on,
yeah, if
they
the
might have voted for it. Could you-
taxpayers get really upset about that, and they wanna, yep.
Could you bring this back? Could you bring the same project back for a second vote if perchance you wanted to do that? I forget, maybe, did you know that? I forget if you can,
I don't know.
I don't, they will have
or
to meet
school
and talk
budgets
about it.
always come
Yeah.
back somewhat
Right.
They
revised.
change it a
and
little
stuff.
bit, they do something, yeah, so
suspect,
if,
I mean-
yeah, if they changed it or did something,
But I
or
guess
we're just
that-
convinced that there was so much disinformation and too close from last year's project that left such a distaste in everybody's mouth, and I think a lot of the issue this year was the confusion with that.
Sure.
And even though you tried to get the word out that it wouldn't be funded by property taxes this time, but people were still convinced. We heard from several people, you're gonna raise our property taxes. We tried to get the word out as best we could, but not a lot of time to kind of do so by the time the
Right, by the
architects and
time it's
everybody
settled.
got there, and Connor got their information to us to get it out there just in time before the town meeting day. And then there's just a lot of angst out there, period, right now with the national.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody's concerned about everything.
Yep.
The other money articles, the other articles, did they
Everything
all
else
pass?
passed, yeah,
Yeah.
even including on the town.
Which they
side,
usually
what I
do. I
heard.
can't remember the last time. I think any of those weren't.
Yeah,
passed.
even the police budget, which was really close last year,
Yeah.
passed by a really nice margin this
Really?
year. And same thing with the fire department for the town side as well.
Yeah.
Great.
So we felt really great about all those things. Any other questions?
Yeah, what, after having now served a term as president, what new perspective do you have on the village? What's something new you've learned from this role?
That it's, even though we're done our best to try to change how people felt, it's gonna take a while to try to erase a lot of the angst and frustration that people feel, or even the division between the two.
Sure. You mean between what?
Town and
Between
village.
Town and village, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the work needs to be done there for sure, to try
Okay.
to work together, find solutions
Yeah.
there.
Any idea what that work looks like yet, or?
Well, you still hear a lot of people talk about the one Swanton or consolidation or one of those type of solutions.
Sure.
And at this point, with some of the disgruntledness of, you can probably see where people are starting to really talk strong about it. While I was out campaigning, it was one of the top things that people kept talking about
Okay.
and asking.
And I should note Neil Spears, back
Yep,
with the
Neil's
village,
back.
succeeding
We-
Eugene LeBombard.
Had two
Or
people that
kudos
were
to
gonna run
Eugene.
for Eugene's spot, and they bowed out at the last minute, and Neil stepped up and filled the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Neil will
Or
be back.
Eugene, talk about a ton of time of public service. I look forward to interviewing him
Yeah.
here in a while, but
No, he was, I've lived next to Eugene for
No,
decades
really?
now.
interesting.
So like Eugene, myself, and Adam Paxton, we all live on the same street.
Really. Anyway,
So to sit next to Eugene for the last year on the board was really fantastic. And it was really sad to see him kind of have to go, that's for sure.
David, thanks for coming in. Take it easy driving
it was
back.
nice talking with you both.
Congratulations
Yeah.
Thanks
on
very
the
much.
reelection, and
Thank you.
good luck. Maybe, hopefully, the third time will be the
Yeah,
charm
we'll,
for
we'll
you
see what
guys.
happens, see what the voters want to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks very
Good
much.
night. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Yeah, we've got another guest coming right now. We're going to be talking the MVU budget. Renick Darnell Martin, the Vice Chair of the MVU Board. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to
Yeah,
see you.
thanks
Can
for
you
being
tell
here.
us, I guess, big question, how do you, have you got any numbers on your budget?
No, we don't have
No.
any numbers yet. School board there, the votes are counted separately.
Right.
So they're actually being tallied right now, and
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, fingers crossed. I think it's always close. Last year was a rough year. We had
Boy,
to
how
go
many, was it 3 votes last year?
3 votes last year
Wow.
to get the budget through. So I mean, we're hopeful, but we won't know until we know. So hopefully later on tonight we get some results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your numbers look pretty good. You came in with what, about a 3% increase or 2.8
So
or?
we had a 2.89 increase over last year's budget.
Yeah.
That's total increase. So I think our budget was landing somewhere around 50 million something.
But you're projecting lower taxes for
But
folks?
yes, so we're looking at the tax rate on average is going to go down about 7%. So, we benefit in this area of the state from, different weights for our students. Like, it's not a secret. We have a lot of students who, are around that poverty line. So that helps us out. But, we were clever with how we created the budget. And it's a tough task because we're trying to keep providing for the students and at the same time trying to keep costs as low as possible.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we worked really hard. I mean, I'm proud of what the board did. I think it's a good budget. I mean, we tried to basically have level servicing, right? So couldn't really add too much, but we can keep the services that we're providing. And we'll just have to see. We'll have to see ultimately what the voters do.
Actually, you have a contested school board race for the Swanton seat.
We're the Swanton,
First
correct? Yeah.
First one I recall in the district in quite
Yeah.
a while, unless I'm forgetting one. Don Collins
Yeah.
being challenged by
Don-
Casey Hansen. And no,
Correct.
we don't know how that came out at this point.
We will know at the same time as the budget comes
Gotcha.
in. I saw Don this morning, and I wished him luck. And I mean, he's been great on the school board. He has a lot of experience. He was a senator. He's superintendent. He's played basically. He's done all the roles.
Right.
I almost think not that he was looking to win. I think he was on the New Hampshire presidential primary ballot one year.
Maybe, yeah.
It doesn't take much to get on. I don't think I'm dreaming that up, but
No,
anyway.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, ask him about that, unless I
yeah.
dreamt that or something. So how'd you get involved with the school board? I think a lot of people think being on a school board these days, probably including myself, sounds like a pretty thankless job, but it sounds like you like what you're doing.
I mean, I have 3 kids in school.
Well, that's a good, you have some good incentive
yeah.
to be on the board, maybe.
I did, and I've always been interested in politics. I am also in the military, so school board of selectmen was actually a good way for me to kind of get introduced to that. And I think the thing that kind of stuck out to me is from the outside, when you're not really involved, like it's easy to have a lot of opinions, right? Like, oh, they should do this, they should do that. When you really see all the complexities of basically running multiple schools, like just upkeeping facilities, like, we employ, I want to say, 400 or 500 people, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into it, and, I just kind of appreciate all the work that they do. It's not easy, right? And I think there's pretty significant challenges in also educating students. So I started in, my first year was 2021, I want to say, for the Highgate seat, and I'm actually on the ballot this year. So we'll see if I win too.
Of course, you're running on
I am. Yeah, I am this year. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it, and I enjoy serving. I've been serving in one capacity or another, and I kind of look at it as just a way to give back, and I like the community, right? Despite all the things that are going on, Franklin, Swanton, Highgate, like they're good people, and they care about their students, and it's just trying to find a way to kind of meet everybody's needs. So we'll see.
Boy, MVU is not a new school. We're talking 1970 or so. I mean, does it cross Just what you need to go to voters with like a new school building, but is MVU holding up pretty well? It's an old school.
That's something that we're pretty proud of, is that we've tried to really keep investing in the capital projects. So we've actually been working on the roof and different phases of the roof. So I think we're on pod 3 or 4 of replacing that. So we've put a lot to the capital projects, especially the building. Inside our budget this year was also redesigning the bathroom. Little
Yes,
things
I
like
did see
that. Yeah, well, what happens is we're trying to also mitigate some of the things that are happening in the school. And so, we've invested in that. We've put some money into Swanton Elementary. We had some money that we put it towards Franklin. So we're trying to also keep those projects. And one of the things that was pretty clever we did this year was, we did some leasing, right? As opposed to having the full amount, we're trying to lease some of the projects that we're doing. So if this vote goes through, we'll be able to, tackle that and deal with that and try to upkeep. So
Yeah, very nice.
working on it.
What kind of conversations do yourself or the board maybe have with our local legislators about what you'd like them to do in the education space in Montpelier?
Yeah, so I feel pretty fortunate. I have had, Matt Walker, who's our guest, he's actually one of your guests later on. He actually is one of the coaches for the school.
Right.
So, and I know pretty well a lot of the legislators just through other things that I've done outside of the school board. I was at the meeting they had with
the breakfast
the
the other day,
breakfast,
yep.
the legislative breakfast that they had. And I'm pretty vocal, and they know me by name. And
Good for you.
and it's and I said this before. I understand they need to reform, the way we fund education. It's one of the biggest issues around the state.
Huge issue.
But we have to be mindful of how we do it, right? And I think one of the things that the voters or individuals in, Highgate and Swan have kind of expressed is we don't want to lose complete control, right? There's significant differences between Chittenden County and Franklin County.
Right, if we were to go to that sort of 5-district model
yeah,
that the governor has proposed.
So, stuff like that. And how do they do it? Because I think that's just, it's a beautiful thing. Like town hall day, right? Like you vote on local issues, you get to decide what you do. So I really hope that they find a way to find the right balance with that. I know I spoke to Lisa Hango, one of the legislators, and she's, I think, on the committees, one of the committees that's going to determine that. But at the same time, too, it's politics, and they just, the governor needed a place to start, and so that's where they're starting.
Right.
So where do they finish up? I don't know.
Yeah, remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But, we got challenges in Vermont, so I think
Absolutely.
everyone's working towards it.
Okay.
That's right.
Great.
Just one quick question before we let you go. I know Maple Run, I guess, eliminated about 20 positions in their budget work. Did you eliminate?
We did.
Really?
We did. I don't know the exact number, but I think we had 8 FT full-time positions that we eliminated. A lot of those were vacancies that were unfilled.
Some were vacant.
Yeah, and that's kind of the line. We're trying to keep level servicing, so we're not going to add. We can't grow, so we eliminated those positions from the budget. We eliminated positions from our central office, right? So we did try to make as many cuts as we could, to propose like a really strong budget. So we're hopeful. Hopefully it goes through, and if not, it's gonna back to the drawing board.
Right,
So.
right.
Right. Rennick, thanks a lot for joining us.
thanks for
Good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hope you get some good news on the budget later for you folks.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good evening.
Rennick Darnell Martin, the Vice Chair of the Missisquoi Valley School District Board. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back in 5 minutes with some more results for you for Town Meeting Day 2025. We'll be back.
I would ask the clerk to cast one ballot for Tom Morgan for select person for a term of 3 years. Congratulations, Tom. Hearing no objections, I would move that the clerk cast one ballot for Tom Morgan, for Brian Doobie for select person for a term of 2 years by ballot. Congratulations, Brian. Second by Vanessa. Any discussion? Articles been moved and seconded. Shall the voters approve the 2025 total general fund expenditures of $1,919,685, of which $1,214,445 shall be raised and $705,240 by non-tax revenues. Open for discussion.
Can you please speak, pardon me, can you please speak to the non-tax revenue money?
Yeah, the non-tax revenue is, for instance, state share for our roads, our town roads. We get revenue from the state for every mile of a town road. We get, and I think that's a large share of non-tax revenue.
Is any of that money, federal money that you might not get?
Not for this budget. No, I think everything for this budget is, well, before I make that firm statement, I'm pretty sure that that is not anticipating federal grants for what I just said. Maybe the brain trust over here can back me up.
We received the last, so permission to speak on the voter
Yeah, the revenues are on the second page of the town report. And I think maybe you're talking about the ARPA funds. ARPA funds have already been received and spent, and audit has been performed on those transactions. So, Kathy, why don't you, and Kathy's asking for, she's a resident of Sheldon. Okay.
If everyone's okay with suspending the rules to allow Kathy to speak to the question, all there is aye. Any opposition? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ainsworth, Town Administrator of Fairfield. And during the year that we just closed, 2024, we received the very last part of a long-term FEMA grant that started with the Halloween storm. So that money was included in last year's budget. This year, we don't anticipate a federal grant, but we do always apply for grants. So the state of Vermont and other entities have grants available. I look at them, I make sure that if they seem appropriate, we'll write them, and it's a competitive process. So those are usually state grants. But in terms of federal funds, we don't have money coming in at this point. The ARPA funds that you were mentioning was also a multi-year process with federal government, and we expended the rest of that money this year. Closed. Any other questions on grants? Thank you.
Any other questions before we vote, or for the select board? Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion on the article, or are we ready to call the question? All right. All in favor of approving the 2025 total general fund expenditures of $1,919,685, of which $1,214,445 shall be raised by taxes and $705,240 by non-tax revenues. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please indicate by saying no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Good evening again, everyone. Richard Cowperthwaite for Northwest Access TV. We're continuing our coverage of Town Meeting Day 2025. Very happy to have alongside Bridget Higdon, the publisher of the St. Albans Messenger, and we're joined right now by Republican Representative Matt Walker of Swanton. Good to see you, Rep. Walker.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us.
Bridget, you want to
Sure,
go
thanks for
after
being here.
our guy here?
Yes. I assume you voted today in Swanton?
I did vote in Swanton
Yes.
today.
In
for the
Swanton Town or Swanton Village?
I'm a town resident. Yep, it's just a couple of miles here from the south side of, I live in the south side of town, so it was pretty
Okay.
easy to get here. And I'm
Very nice.
happy
So
to get
kind of a
chance to run
typical
over.
turnout, not again, unfortunately, pretty low turnout as per usual, huh?
Ours was pretty straightforward. We had one select board position that was contested, and of course, the school budget that we don't know about yet.
Actually, a couple contested races. Joel Clark beat Alan Letourneau.
That is true.
And
Right,
actually,
that one wasn't quite-
Nick Rosso won the other race over.
By quite a bit.
Over Brendan Long and Brendan Kelly. Anyway, Bridget.
I'm sorry.
Jump in.
No, that's okay.
There were
Yes, we were talking just before about your chairmanship for the Committee on Transportation in the House. Tell us a little bit about what you've been working on there this session.
Well, I have a couple of big jokes that I use in the House all the time now, and one of them is if I'd have known I was going to become the chair of House Transportation, I would have paid better attention last session. But it's an $858 million budget that starts in the House, and it's our job in the committee to get our portion of it through, along with language and policy requests by crossover, which is coming up, March 14th, but March 21st for money bills. So my biggest goal right now is to push through the budget. The biggest thing that I'm working on is finding a way to improve the formula for town highway aid structures and town highway projects. I'm really looking at, it's always been a flat formula fund, so as expenses continue to go up, our towns are falling, in effect further behind because the money is the same and the expenses are going up, and we're looking at, I'm really trying to push through an escalator that's inflation-based or based on any revenue increases in the overall transportation fund, so that we can get out of the flat funding and that it would compound year after year. That's my biggest goal this year as the chair of the House Transportation, is to try to find additional help and that our towns don't fall further behind. I'm not sure I can get them a ton of new money, but I'm going to make sure that we don't fall behind more every year. That's my biggest goal.
Great. And are you talking a bit about Green Mountain Transit and sort of their route changes and their recent struggles?
They certainly have a lot going on. We've had Green Mountain Transit in. We've had, of course, the Agency of Transportation in and their public transit director. We've also had 4 regional providers that are in different spots around the state that work with the agency and provide rural services, including the one that is being sort of tapped to be involved in the services here in Franklin County. And I both with the testimony of Green Mountain Transit, who's agreeing with the governor's recommend and the governor's budget, at least as far as the spending goes for this year, but the services change. Everybody's concerned, but I will say that the specializing, the group, the RCT that would be looking to come into Franklin County has been very successful in their move into up in Newport, and heard a tremendous amount of positive feedback and a lot of testimony that they do. They're really, this is what they're geared toward, is regional and rural transportation. I think Green Mountain Transit will stay with the commuter routes out of Alburg into St. Albans, Milton, and down into Burlington, and out of the islands down into Burlington. But it really is about getting the people that are, the companies that are most focused on what they do best.
Sure.
I feel like Franklin County is going to be in good hands if that transition occurs.
Right, that could see some expansion in terms of public transit in Franklin County.
We saw a presentation of how they're using AI on dispatch throughout the Northeast Kingdom, and they're able to use their bridled services, braided services, where they're doing, of course, the Medicaid and the elderly, and microtransit on demand, and of course, actually providing the routes on all of those pieces together. And I will say the committee, I think, was, I can't speak for everybody, I thought it was very impressive, and I think that if that's the service level we can get to in Franklin County, the people, they will be, after the transition, very comfortable with the services. We're not going to go backward in services, is what I certainly feel.
Right.
There are still a lot of things to be worked out, and there's issues in terms of how Chittenden County is going to handle transportation, but I think that if this move goes forward, Franklin County will be well served by the provider that's being looked
that's
at.
good
And
news.
we've had them in for testimony multiple times.
Great, yeah, because I'm thinking about how all this conversation around workforce and trying to grow, our workforce and fill these open positions, having access to public transit goes hand in hand with that in a lot of ways in order to,
I hear it regularly from the employee, the workers, and from people in our industrial parks and people trying to get people to work for the work. We have a lot of work here in Franklin County that we're looking for more and more help. So I feel pretty good about what I've seen so far.
Great.
Matt, we appreciate you coming in. Good luck. We'll be interested to see how your chairmanship plays out. But again, congrats, and Republicans certainly got to be feeling a little better in Montpelier these days than the last couple sessions.
The morale is certainly higher than it was the previous session.
Anyway.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for coming in.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks. Okay, Bridget, we've got, I believe we have Bill Kimball zooming in on us. Bill Kimball, the superintendent of Maple Run Unified School District. And Mr. Superintendent, are you out there? Thanks. Okay, Bridget, we've got, we have Bill Kimball zooming in on us. Bill Kimball.
Oh, Bill, can you unmute for us?
We can't, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi, Richard. Hi, Bridget. Sorry about that.
Any numbers for us?
No, we don't have anything yet. The past couple of years, it's taken to 10 to 11 o'clock to get our counts in. So we were actually surprised. I talked to Paul about it, that I probably wouldn't have numbers at this point. We still don't.
Numbers for us?
Okay. Well, did you visit any of the polls today? What was the feeling out there? Did you have a sense of the vibe in any way?
No, the vibe has been really quiet. It's been a different year. Usually by now, we usually have an idea of what people are thinking, and our board did a lot of outreach to the community starting in November. And again in January. I know a couple of our board members went and had kind of coffee hours at different places in Fairfield and in the city, and hadn't heard anything yet. So we're still waiting. You know, they maybe had one person approach them about the budget. So it's just been a really quiet year that's different than any other year I can remember in St. Albans for the past 5 years. So I think I can't really, it's hard to know if that's good news or, you know, what people are thinking.
A year ago, just sounds like there was just so much concern about school budgets a year ago with the big increase that most folks were looking at. Number of school budgets went down. It seems like this year the situation with school budgets was just not nearly as hot. Did you have that sense? Was this a easier time to be trying to get a school budget passed?
I don't think it was an easier time, Richard. I think what it was is we heard what happened last year from our voters, and we passed with 55 votes, which I think, Bridget, you referenced that earlier in the show tonight. And that was just that was the closest vote by far for Maple Run since our merger. And so our board heard that really loudly last March, and they asked us to start planning for a more austere budget for this year. So we started to do that. We started to look at, you know, what do we really need to provide the same services to kids and keep a high quality education going forward. And the board challenged us that all the way up until they adopted the budget in January. And so we were planning for that. We did. Our overall budget expenditure is up only 2% from the previous year. And that's with some really steep increases in healthcare, along with salary increases in our ratified contract with the teachers at 4%. So, you know, 80% of our budget is personnel costs. So with those costs, knowing those costs and that effect, we really had to sharpen our pencils and really look at this year's budget.
And again, what, 20 positions were eliminated? Bill, most of which were vacant, but...
Yeah, most of them were vacant, not all of them. For the past 2 years, and our board asked us this is what they challenged us with. They knew for the past 2 years that we had been running somewhere around 23 to 26 positions vacant. Not necessarily the same positions, but that's kind of where we had been hovering in this hiring climate that we have right now, and I know that happens in private businesses as well. So the board said to us, you know, that's where, while you may not be able to cut there might not be those positions you cut, we want you to cut to that equivalent. So it was about $1.6 million. We knew if we were to do what's a level service budget, which basically means all the same services with all the same positions, we had about a little under a $4 million increase. And so with that cut, we got it down to a $1.5 million increase.
Anything?
Yeah, I know on Friday, we got sort of the draft bill language for the governor's education transformation plan. And there'll be lots of debate about that now. But your initial glance at that bill, I'm sure you've looked at it. Do you have some thoughts you could share with us?
Yes, I do. I will say I've read the whole thing and made notes about it. There wasn't much that was surprising that came out in the actual language in what has been already presented by the secretary in her testimony to the legislature. It comes out with the news of the 5 big districts for Vermont, where the Champlain Valley District will be, that would include Addison, Chittenden, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties, would be much larger than any other district. So it would have almost 35,000 students in it. I wonder if that's a solution for Vermont. I have had my career, St. Albans and Maple Run is the largest district I've ever worked in, with the largest schools I've ever worked with. I'm a Vermont administrator and Vermont educator, and I've worked from the Northeast Kingdom to Washington County and now in Franklin County. And I wonder what all of Vermont will think of that size of school districts. I personally have a hard time fathoming that Vermont wants that, but I also know Vermont taxpayers are having a hard time taking the tax impacts that have been happening due to education. So it's a real crucial time. The other pieces that were in there were the school choice had been changed quite a bit from what was initially talked about. There was initially talk of K through 12 choice and a lottery system, and in the bill it came in as a 9 through 12 choice system with a lottery system for all students. And then it talks about ratio in the bill. Instead of class size, it talks about a staff to student ratio of 1 to 25, which I believe would make much larger class sizes because you need staff to help support the running of schools that aren't teachers in the classroom. So there's a lot more to learn about it. There are a lot of details that aren't in the bill, and I hope those are coming, and we'll see what that means for Vermont education.
Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be interested to see how the budget fares later on.
All right, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill Kimball, the superintendent of the Maple Run Unified School District. And Bridget, we've got Brian Savage, I think, joining us right now. Called Brian the Swanton Village manager the other day, a little off, Swanton Village administrator. Brian Savage, I think, joining us on the phone. Brian, can you hear us?
Hi, good evening. And I'm Swanton Town administrator. You said Swanton Village.
Swanton Village? Wait, maybe.
Yeah. So, but anyways, good evening. And how's everyone?
Meeting today.
Yes. Okay, we've got all the town articles and election results here if you'd like to have them. We had a fairly decent turnout. Not huge, but we had probably 750 out of 5,200 or 5,300 registered voters. But nonetheless, it was an active day. We had a couple of select board races. Joel Clark won re-election, 434 to 322. His challenger was Alan Materno. Of course, the select person for the 2-year term, Nick Brosso, won by 414 votes, and he unseated the appointed incumbent of Brendan Long with 188 votes, and Brendan Kelly, another candidate, was at 142. And everyone else, for Lister, collector of delinquent taxes, auditor, trustee of public money and library trustee were all ran unopposed.
Brian, Brian, a year ago, the very close vote that was watched carefully in Swanton Town was on the police budget, just
Right.
barely passed last year. How'd you fare this year with that?
Well, this year, it passed by a substantial margin, 331 to 112.
Wow.
So that was a welcome change from last year.
What do you think changed this year, Brian?
Well, first of all, I think some of it was, last year was sticker shock, because it was a significant increase from the prior year. This year, though it was an increase, was not as significant as it was. And the police chief gives a very comprehensive report, and seems to be getting results, especially in trying to tackle the ongoing drug problem. So I think, that is paying off. So I think people are fairly satisfied.
Other money articles, Brian, everything passed?
Everything passed by good margins. There was basically all 2 to 1, sometimes 3 to 1. Like the highway budget passed 387 to 59, and the fire protection was 389 yes to 55 no. So I mean, those are all very healthy margins. Town general expense passed 580 to 163. The library, 2 questions for the library, both passed very easily, and the recreation and the rescue services all passed very healthy margins.
Brian, you're the Swanton Town administrator, but you're a Swanton Village resident. And I talked to you on an earlier show. I assume you're a bit disappointed with the big vote in the village on the proposed electric department building?
Well, I am. It's only by 6 votes. But nonetheless, the voters have spoken. It's up to the Board of Trustees what they'd like to do. I know they're disappointed, of course, by such a small margin. So I suspect we'll be hearing from them at some future point here fairly shortly, a month or 2, what their plans are. Because the space is still very much needed.
Sure. And Brian, I know there's been quite a bit of discussion in Swanton Town around recreation, and can you speak to what's next on that front? What will be, when the board reorganizes, what will they talk about?
Well, what we've got going on the recreation would be, we still want the 4th Street property, the site of the Old Town Garage. We're still going through the testing that the state of Vermont is requiring. We want to get that going so it can be used for some recreational purpose. I am not sure, as was mentioned with Joel Clark and myself on Richard's program a week ago, the big rec center, community center, been kind of put on hold, so we're maybe exploring other options there. But I think the immediate future, you're going to see hopefully, some sort of progress on the 4th Street property.
Great. Thank you very much.
Brian, thank you for joining us. Good luck with everything out there.
Right. Okay, fine. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Again, Swanton Town Administrator Brian Savage, thanks for joining us. We're going to take a break. We'll be back and wrap things up. We'll be back.
Morning, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order today. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance with help from the Girl Scout Troop 63-738 and Cub Scout Pack 842. Before I get started, reading the warning, I'd like to say, as most of you know, our town clerk is retiring this year. She's had a good run with the town. The board really appreciated all her help. She's always looking out for the town, not just her job. So we'd like to recognize her. And,
Thank you for the last 9 years. It's been a good run. I've had good help in my office that helped me make it easy, and thank you all. All right, all those in favor of Jane Lanza for town clerk for 3 years, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. I will ask the clerk to cast one ballot for Jane Lanza for town clerk. Okay. All those in favor of Jane Lanza for town treasurer for 3 years, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I will ask the clerk to cast one vote for Jane Lanza for town treasurer for a position of 3 years. The votes are in. We had a total of 59 votes cast. 15 for Brian Derry, and we had 44 for Rick Piasny. Rick has the votes for the select board member for 3 years. Congratulations, Rick. Also, the votes are in for Article 1F, a select board member for 1 year, remaining of a 3-year term. There were 62 ballots cast. Greg Stebbins received a total of 32 votes. Amy Jenkins, a total of 30 votes. Greg has the nomination for a select board member for the 1 year, remaining of a 3-year term. Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a second. You'll notice in the article, the Sheldon Food Shelf has requested some money from the town. Food Shelf has been in operation since the early 1990s, so we're about 30 plus years into operating. We have never asked the town for money before. And there are 2 reasons for that. Number one, when we first started back 30 years ago, the operation was really very minimal. And between donations and what the church could provide, we were fine. As the operation got bigger and bigger, we got some funding from United Way. But when the pandemic hit, the United Way's whole strategy and funding process got totally messed up because they just didn't get fundraising. And so we lost our United Way funding. And one of the reasons we lost our United Way funding was because we had so much low cost and no cost food available through the food bank, and we were getting so many donations, private donations, that we could get our hands on all the food we could give away, and we couldn't even spend all the donations that we had. When the pandemic ended and a lot of those funding sources have gone away, and our needs, our access to the food shelf has continued to grow. Before the pandemic, we were serving about 100 families a month. When the pandemic hit, we jumped to 200. This month, or for the last several months now, for almost the last year, we're typically serving between 350 and 400 families. Between 1,000 and 1,200 people come to my food shelf every month to get food. We move between 20 and 25,000 pounds of food a month moves through my food shelf building. The other reason was because a very small percentage of my clientele were actually from Sheldon.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn the 2025 Swanton Town meeting. Do we have that seconded? We do. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, thank you very much, folks, for your town meeting.
And good evening again, everyone. Richard Copperthwaite, Northwest Access TV. We're getting close to wrapping things up here. Town Meeting Day coverage 2025. And we have some news of note from Paul Snyder. Paul, what have you got for us? Maple Run Unified School District.
Yep, thanks, Richard. So I just heard back from Superintendent Bill Kimball, who we just had on the show. Maple Run passed their budget 969 to 773 for Maple Run.
Well, pretty solid. Again, last vote, I think Bill said, 55 vote approval last year, which was a one really close vote there had been.
Right.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Thanks for keeping track of stuff like that.
Yeah, of course, you're welcome.
Bridget, again, Fairfax had a big issue, a lot of controversy, which Messenger has certainly been dealing with about the town administrator or manager's position, and that came up for a vote.
Right, they were voting on Article 4, which would have, if it had, it was asking to rescind the town manager position. That had come about because a group of residents put up enough signatures to petition this question on the ballot. And so the article will keep, so they will keep the town manager position. Which is I think is great for the select board, because that would be a lot more work for them to take on as volunteer
that's a busy town,
members
what,
in the community.
5,000 or so? I mean,
Sure, and growing, for sure.
And growing, for sure.
The other news from Fairfax would be that the school budget did fail by 7 votes.
Wow.
So that'll have to go to
close vote.
go to a revote there. That'll be the first school district in Franklin County to do so tonight.
Wow.
Still waiting on others, of course.
And Paul, I guess you said Alberg went down also, I believe. So not Franklin County, but not far away. So that's the first no school budget vote we've at least heard about.
That we've heard about so far, yes.
And it sounds like we're not going to get Missisquoi Valley. That comes in typically later.
Later tonight, for
Where
sure.
they're hoping for better times than last year, when they often seem to have multiple votes. Anyway.
Right. And Fairfax went to 3 votes last year as well.
Fairfax
so
did too.
we'll see whether they're on that track again or
And I know
not.
Milton just out of Franklin County, of course, but you folks are on top of Milton. Milton's had a tough time, it seems like, for years with the school budget.
It does typically, yes.
Interesting. Highgate, a lot of stuff going on in Highgate today, and again, I
Yeah,
wasn't
lots
there
of
for the
ballot
first time in
questions.
decades, because it was all Australian ballot.
Right, for sure. So they've allowed ATVs on public roads by about, looks like 50 votes, 51 votes or so. There was also a non-binding advisory question about the future home of the library, about whether that would move to the Pause for Thought building, and so that got a majority yes vote, 274 to 213.
At least as an option, I guess, is what they
Correct,
put it,
yes. Yep, yeah, the library there has wanted a new space and more space for some time now, and so we'll see if that happens with this proposal.
And I guess the library trustees weren't even really happy to see that on the ballot.
Right.
But I guess the village core, not, I guess, a ballot item, but I guess the village core issues seem to be moving ahead. Of course, we have Cathedral Square proposing senior housing.
For
Boy,
sure.
a lot going on in Highgate, especially when you mentioned the Franklin County State Airport project.
Right, absolutely, yep. Growth there, for sure.
Interesting.
And the town budget passed in Highgate as well.
And town budget passed in Highgate. Montgomery, do we have a result on the local option tax? I think that was the one Franklin County community voting on a local option tax. Paul, did you happen to track that down in Montgomery?
I'm trying to find out which article that was. Article 9, that did pass. I don't have any numbers, so I'm
But
assuming it was just a voice vote.
It did pass?
Yep.
Okay, so I guess Montgomery will be joining what, St. Albans City and St. Albans Town? I don't think I'm missing anybody
Don't
else.
think so,
Of
and that's a
course-
1% tax on
Right,
sales,
another 1%.
in that town that then can be used at, for various purposes.
Right, I mean, St. Albans Town has done great with that. I mean, they paid for the new town hall,
Right.
the new public works garage.
Yep.
And St. Albans City also has been using that money.
Yeah,
Whereas the
outside
state-
of
yeah.
outside of Franklin County, but Colchester just used it to
Right.
build their recreation center,
Right.
which opened this past week. So
Wow.
yeah,
And
lots
course
of
the s-
options
The
with the
state,
local
the state
options
loves
tax.
it. The state grabs, what, 30% of this, so I would think the state would be happy if everybody,
Sure.
if everybody did that.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to see what other issues were grabbing me here. Well, it's kind of just some of these close votes are, I guess, what's really jumping out at me. And again, I logged a lot of time in Franklin, but very interesting to me. I've been going to the Highgate Town meeting for years, and that was discussion from the floor, but it was on each article, and it was, good discussion, but Franklin was a different situation for me, because town reports, which seemed like, just discussion on the town reports, and I'm thinking, well, this won't take long, they'll go, and this was hours on this, and then it got to the, and again, a lot of different organizations, and this was discussion on all these. I mean, boy, if you really want to get a handle on your town, what a great way to kind of learn about it.
Right.
Of course, not many people, how many people showed up? Maybe 75 at most.
Mhm.
But I was impressed that, I went away from that meeting knowing a whole lot more about what goes on in Franklin.
Right.
And again, a real battle about the school budget. And I think that just underscores that taxes continue to be a huge concern.
Mhm.
The municipal budget was up about 20% or so, about $200,000.
Mhm.
And a lot of concern from some folks saying, hey, who knows with what's going on to the federal government, federal workers, your neighbors may be
Right.
getting laid off. That's a big increase, but they kept trying to reduce it, didn't do it, and finally the original budget was approved.
For sure,
Anyway,
for sure.
other thoughts on Town Meeting Day 2025? Anything in particular grabbing you?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about how, I said at the beginning that there were quite a few uncontested races for local office.
Yeah.
But there are going to be quite a few new faces joining local boards, in tandem with that.
Yeah.
We talked to the new St. Albans City Councilor. We're going to have new folks on the Swanton board. And so I think that's great, and it'll be really exciting to see sort of what new energy comes with that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit, of course, about David Winchester joined us as Swanton Village president, but boy, the Swanton Village folks have put just so much effort into that. The big concern being the very cramped police department headquarters. And Bill Sheets, the Swanton Village manager, was so fond of saying on the shows when I talked to him, Richard, we have the only fully staffed police department in the state, no longer the case unless they had a couple positions.
Right,
And I
right.
think they might have maybe just filled one of them, but boy,
Sure.
that's been
Sure, and
just
voters
an
are showing
ongoing
that
issue.
they support the department in passing their
Yeah,
budget,
right.
but maybe not as much in the space category, so.
Right, the
for
vote,
sure.
yeah, the vote a year ago in Swanton Town on the police budget just barely passed which was, I guess, a big increase at that point.
Right, but today was a
So,
much cleaner,
yeah,
cleaner
cleaner.
passage. Yep.
So, in St. Albans City, again, not kind of the most exciting sounding project, but the St. Albans City and Burlington's had the issue also with heavy rainfalls, getting a sewage overflow with it, I guess, partially treated, but not very well treated sewage, wastewater that gets into the lake. So city decided to deal with that, and it sounds like they've come up with the plan with the underground storage tank under Houghton Park. That's a
Right.
big project,
Yeah,
$4 million
absolutely.
bond, and the project cost pegged it more like about almost $7 million, I think.
Right, and it won't affect, things happening at the park, I believe,
Right.
that'll.
I
it'll-
play tennis down there.
Yeah, sure,
Of course,
so that'll.
the Franklin County Steelers, that's your football field.
Yep. Right,
So-
so activities there can, I think, continue this summer and this fall as well.
Yeah, and the city budget, again, the last city budget that went down was, I think when the fire department was downsized. But again, I guess no problems with the budget, and the main increase in that was just with police, paying police officers more. I
Right.
know Mayor Tim Smith, who almost joined us tonight, he was otherwise occupied, understandably, but he made the point, I think the city budget was up about maybe 8% or so, a much bigger increase than usual.
Right.
But I know he said on a show I did with him, Richard, just have, I hope voters think about the last 3 years when it's about an average 4% increase.
For sure.
But I was struck in Franklin, I'm not sure I've ever run into such a long discussion about a municipal budget, but I guess it just underscores that folks have a lot of concerns about that, and that's
Yeah, absolutely.
that's sure not going away.
Right. And I think we'll probably wrap up here in a moment or two, but yeah, I think my final pitch
Yeah.
to voters here tonight and to people in the community would be, we have to look at the totals tomorrow, but I would say, fairly adequate, low turnout. Like it was kind of a mixed bag today, probably. Seemed like a lot of the folks who came out were older, who are the folks who come out every year. And I think it's really easy in the climate that we live in right now, where national politics loom really large, to sort of feel like, well, nothing I can do can make a difference. And I would just urge folks to really, get out on the local level, and either, just by casting your vote, you can request an absentee ballot ahead of time from your town clerk if you can't get out that day, if you're working or you've got family to take care of. Request that absentee ballot and do it ahead of time, mail it in. Take care of it. Do an act as simple as that, or step up and and run for office. I mean, I think at our local level, we can really make a lot of change if we want to. And so that would be my last ditch effort tonight.
Well put. Thanks very much to publisher, St. Albans Messenger publisher, Bridget Higdon, your usual great job. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you,
Just want to
Richard.
thank, in my final words, just thanks to all the folks here, the great staff at Northwest Access TV. Thanks for putting on a great show. Paul Snyder, Josh Pryor, Alan Cunningham, Katie Foster, Hunter Pera, Jasmine Medina, Aram, Mr. B, Dennis Boucher, and if I missed anybody, my apologies. But thanks to the great staff here. Thanks to the folks who came in on Not the Best Night for interviews. We appreciate your efforts. And for the folks who did participate in town meeting today, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll see you next time.